Thank you for joining History A Level. We are looking at the French Revolution of 1789. The French Revolution goes to up 1799. Today, we are going to look at the events focusing on the moderate phase of the French Revolution. We remember the French Revolution has four different phases. We have the moderate phase, that is from 1789 to 1791, just when the new constitution is made for France. And then we have the radical phase spanning from 1794, just after Maximilian Robespierre is assassinated. That makes the end of the radical phase. And then we're going to have the reign of the Directory, where five directors going to rule France. That's why we call it the reign of the Directory. And lastly, the Napoleonic era. Today, we are focusing on the first phase, that's the moderate phase of the French Revolution. It starts with the meeting of the Estates General, 5th May 1789. The General Estate, which was Parliament or National Assembly, had never met for 175 years, but because of the financial situation, the country is bankrupt. Then Louis XVI is forced to call the National Assembly, the Parliament, or the Estate General at that particular time. And a very big issue because previously we remember the two estates, the first estate and the second estate used to gang together and outsmart the third estate. But when it met, the third estate now says that we have to vote according to population. And we remember the majority of people in France belonged to the third estate, and therefore that became a very big issue. Then we had a list of grievances at that particular time, which the third estate wanted the king then, Louis XVI, address, but Louis XVI then failed to address the pertinent issues affecting the third estate at that particular time. And therefore, there was no otherwise but the third estate to break away. And when they broke away, they formed what we call the National Assembly. That name is so symbolic, is so significant, because the third estate now asserts that they're representing the people of France, all of them, not according to estate as the previous order or the status quo was at that particular time. The formation of the National Assembly, also very significant because it's the first defiant act against the king then, Louis XVI. The people are saying now, enough is enough. They declare themselves as the National Assembly. And the third estate goes ahead and invites the other estates to join them during that particular time. And the king then said that he's going to mend a place where they were meeting, but the third mend a place where they were meeting, but the third estate, still defiant, has moved to the nearby tennis court. We remember the tennis court of 20th June 1789. Very important, the tennis court oath, because the people now are asserting themselves and they're saying they want a new order. We remember the swearing of the people. We are not going to disperse until a new constitution is given to France at this particular time. That's the oath the people took at the tennis court oath of 1789, 20th June 1789. Very important oath because we're talking about our constitution. And the historians and also legal students, we know the constitution is the supreme law that governs in a country and is the basic framework on which government is made. Essentially and basically, people are saying that we want a new structure of governance at this particular time. That's the oath, very serious. It shows their commitment. The people are committed to starting a new order, breaking the old status quo. The tennis court oath, the people are pledging for a new government at that particular time. It shows that the people are ready to go to whatever extent to create a new government in France at that particular time. And it's important to remember some historians will assert that the beginning of the French Revolution started at the tennis court oath of 20th June 1789. The king will make some efforts to reconcile the third estate together with the second and first estate in what is called the royal session. But because Louis XVI did not have the skills and the talent to do that, the situation went out of control. We then moved to one of the most violent acts of the French Revolution, and you're talking about the storming of Bastille. The storming of Bastille, 14th July 1789, in itself also a momentous event in the French Revolution. The people go to Bastille basically to get arms. There was a rumor sweeping France at that particular time that the king wants to use the immigrants, the people who have ran away from France and other countries that were against the revolution, to come and fight the revolutionaries in France at that particular time. There are the people wanted to get arms to protect themselves, but Bastille itself was a notorious political prison, and that event is so important that one historian has asserted with the storming of Bastille, the flames of the revolution swept all over France at that particular time. And therefore, it's important to remember that being one of the things that really led to the French Revolution becoming more violent. And then we are told then that the French people always celebrate the National Day of that particular time of 14th July 1789. It still shows the commitment of the people. It still shows the people are ready to fight and preserve the revolution at all cost. And we have the bloodshed that was shed during the storming of Bastille. We remember the governor of Paris then was assassinated at that particular time. And these will be one of the issues that was pertinent during the storming of Bastille, July. That is July, and it was a very, very significant event. And then after that, we're going to have the Great Fear in France, the Grand Peu, as the Frenchmen will call it, where peasants will storm the nobles' mansions and kill, a lot of disorder, a lot of mayhem then in France at that particular time. The Grand Peu at that particular time also caused a lot of fear. Fear instilled in everybody, especially the nobles. They start running away from France to become the immigrants in foreign countries at that particular time. And it's important to remember the sweeping of France with fear in what we call the Grand Peu. After that, we're going to have in August 1789 the August decrees which were passed by then the National Assembly to abolish the privileges enjoyed by the nobility. This also is very significant because all those privileges, we remember the first estate not paying taxes, owning a lot parcels of land in France at that particular time. Well, the second estate having a lot of lofty jobs, not also paying taxation, and the whole thing of the feudal dues being abolished by the August decrees at this particular time. So the August decrees are very essential and very important when you're talking about the French Revolution in the moderate phase. And then we're going to have the passing of the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizens in France at that particular time, which was one of the documents that will be appended to the new constitution. Very important. All the basic essential human rights were outlined in the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizens, adopted from the American Revolution of 1776, which in the Declaration of Independence written by Thomas Jefferson, he had asserted some of these rights, and we quote the Declaration of Independence equal, and they are endowed by Creator with certain unalienable rights, and these are the rights that are going to be asserted in the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen. Some of the basic rights, the right of expression, that the citizens will express themselves freely without interference from the government. There's going to be no press censorship in France at that particular time. The right of assembly, where the French citizen could assemble, the right of association, where the French citizen could associate with anybody, the right to own property, where each of the persons could own property without discrimination in France at that particular time, the right to vote the leaders, which was essential, which is important, which was essential, which is important during that particular time. So the passing of Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen, which was influenced by the American Revolution of 1776, was so important. The civil constitution of the clergy. We remember the church, the first estate, was so powerful, was so symbolic, given a lot of privileges. But in the passing of the civil constitution, the powers of the churches are reduced completely. They are going to be paid salary by the government. The lands, the large parcels of lands they own are going to be taken away by the government at that particular time. They had to take an oath of loyalty to pledge that they're going to be loyal to then the National Assembly at that particular time. So the passing of the civil constitution of the clergy reduces the church influence and powers to minimal levels, in France at that particular time. So quite a momentous French Revolution. And lastly, when you're talking about the moderate phase of the French Revolution, the passing of the Constitution in 1791, a new constitution, a new structure of government then is created in France at that particular time, where we're going to have active and passive citizens, and voting was based on whether you owned property at that particular time in France, and that's what you're calling active citizens. Passive citizens could not vote at that particular time, and therefore some critical people would say that universal suffrage had not been achieved in France at that particular time. And the radicals then are going not to be satisfied by these. And that's why in 1792, France then will become a republic, because this, according to people, the issue of a constitutional monarch, what the constitution created, was not radical enough. It's not what the people desired in France, and it will lead to the making of a republic in 1792. Therefore, the first phase is known as moderate phase, particularly known as the moderate phase because it was not as radical, nor a lot of violence like the second phase of 1792, 1794, where we're going to have a lot of bloodshed in what we call the Reign of Terror, where thousands of people are going to be executed in France at that particular time. So it is in contrast with the radical phase where the revolution had gone beyond any control and had, in fact, started killing the revolutionaries themselves. And that's why the phrase, the revolution kills its own children, started being used at that particular time in the French Revolution of 1789, which happened, and which perhaps is copied or is a role model to all people trying to fight unjust governments in the world currently. They look at the French Revolution and they're inspired with the activities of what the French people did to get a democratic system of government. That's when, after the French Revolution, democracy was established in France at that particular time. So the moderate phase of the French Revolution, starting with the meeting of the Estates General, leading to a new constitution, a new dawn, a new beginning in France, although it is a constitutional monarch where the powers of Louis XVI were limited, as opposed or in contrast to the absolute king he was, and he had misused his power. Remember, historians say power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And therefore, during that time, before the establishment of the constitutional monarch, there was that issue, and therefore Louis XVI had misused his powers. And therefore, we are ending our lesson today about the moderate phase of the French Revolution. We have covered in a snapshot the main events that happened during what we call the moderate phase of the French Revolution. We welcome you for the next lesson, which we're going to start analyzing some of the momentous, some of the great events that took place during the radical phase of the French Revolution and the establishment of the first French Republic and the establishment of the first French Republic. Thank you. Remember, Mr. Willis Wundere, you can subscribe to my channel. You can also comment on these historical episodes we are creating for Form 5 students, LO students who are tackling option 1A, the French Revolution, 1789 to 1799. Thank you. We meet again for the next episode of the French